instead of focusing on past experiences, it's rather better to just focus on potential, on how well a person would perform in a possible position in our company.
This is the Rebel HR Podcast. If you're a professional looking for innovative, thought-provoking information in the world of human resources, this is the right podcast for you. All right, Rebel HR listeners, I'm extremely excited for today's guest. We are speaking with Federica Gianoglio. That's a really fun name to say. She is the HR success manager for Pearl Lemon, and she has never met one of her employees. So today we're going to be talking all about remote work, how to make it work, and the new normal. So welcome to the show, Federica.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so excited for today's conversation, and I'm just fascinated to hear more about your organization and your story. So why don't we start off? Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you got into the field of human resources?
Yeah, sure. I'm really happy to share my experience, even if I'm quite new to the field of HR. But I think it's really interesting to share, in particular, this journey that I'm still living with Per Lemon. I joined Per Lemon 7 months ago, and I was hired as the HR success manager. So that means I was mostly focused on the development of the team. That means ensuring progress both for each individual as well as the overall team. Then I soon switched to head of HR because I was in charge of everything related to human resources. So that means recruitment, building new company processes, organizing training materials, managing onboarding, offboarding, doing a bit of project management, a lot of stuff. And and as you mentioned, I am actually managing, let's say, a quite small team that is 100% remote. The company I work for, Pearl Lemon, has always been entirely remote. So that means we never really get to meet the people we work with closely every day. And if you do meet some people, you're quite lucky, and that's super interesting to meet up at last. But to me, it never happened, and I'm really happy to actually experience this feeling because it's quite unusual, isn't it? Um, but I'm actually enjoying it because you see that it's a completely different way to connect with people, and it's very powerful because especially nowadays we have the tools and means to just be connected despite being really far from each other.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So, how many people do you have living within different countries? I mean, is it completely international? Do you have people focused around a certain geographic area? How do you approach that?
Actually, we are all based in different parts of the world. So we have people coming from anywhere in the world, literally. Usually, we have people in at least 10 different time zones. So time zones is actually a big thing that we need to consider when dealing with team members, but also clients. And it's super interesting when you are working on something and then you're going to bed and you see people waking up at that same time, and then the other way around, when you wake up, other people just ended their day. So yeah, we have people in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, in America, of course, everywhere.
Yeah, I can relate to the time zone issue. Coming from an international company myself, it certainly is something that you have to be thoughtful
Yes.
about. So as you look at time zone, do you have regular work hours that you set people up for, or how do you approach that?
That is actually something that makes us quite unique, I think, because we don't have set work hours exactly for this reason. That means we are able to work whenever we feel like. No matter at what time, we are always going to find someone else working with us. So we just have to achieve a set amount of work hours per week, and then if we want to work in the morning, in the afternoon, at night, it's really up to us.
I gotta believe that's a challenge to manage. So, as the HR success manager, do you manage the actual like the time worked? Do you track the time worked and kind of manage that in your role, or what's your role in that?
Yeah, we all, so everybody in the team just keeps track of their working hours so that we can share that every day. So one of the ways that we just keep in contact is by updating each other twice a day, every single day. So that means whenever you are starting to work, you are going to just say hi to the team, and then you're going to say, "I'm going to start working," so that everybody is aware of what the time is where you are. So you start by saying, "Okay, it's this time in this country or this time zone," so that everybody knows, okay, now I am active no matter what the time is for other people, and you can reach out to me. At the end of the working day, it's the same thing. We send another message so that everybody is aware I'm signing off. I'm not available anymore until the next day, unless there's anything urgent, but that is, let's say, an unspoken rule. But yeah, that is actually the way we keep each other updated so that we are respectful of everybody's working hours and rest moments.
Interesting. So, so you mentioned that you're relatively new into the field of human resources. As you look at the career opportunities ahead of you, what about human resources is something you enjoy?
Yeah, it is actually something really interesting for me, and learning in this environment has been super important because I really got the feeling that sometimes it's not as complicated as it seems, but I also know that there are challenges I want to work on. So by keeping this in mind, I'm like, do I want to invest my time and energy on this? Yeah, I think so. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But because you see how things progress in such a limited amount of time, for example, in 7 months, I've seen things have been really uh, things have changed a lot. Were completely different since I first joined the company, and I'm happy to just see the change and know that I contributed to that because I was actively working on specific challenges.
So, your organization is an interesting business model. The decision to go full remote across the board, was that a decision from the beginning of the company, or was it driven by COVID-19 and some of the things happening in the world in 2020?
It was actually since the very, very beginning when Deepak Shukla, the founder of Pearl Lemon, decided to just start his own business. It started with a different brand name, and then it became Pearl Lemon officially in 2018. And he's always wanted to be able to work from anywhere in the world because he was already traveling a lot and maybe living in different areas of the world. And it was like, I don't want to give up on my business, and it's actually the same for everybody. And with this mindset, it's it's really interesting to see that everybody that decides to join the company starts from the same perspective, from the same expectations, from this point of view. So that means it's different from a company that has switched to working from home suddenly, or because it was a decision that they really wanted to make for a while and not because of COVID. But in our case, it's different because you don't really have people struggling with understanding how working remotely works, because this is what you wanted, this is what we offer, and this is what you have.
Absolutely. Yeah. So clear expectations out front, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm curious to maybe dive into this process a little bit more. And one of the areas that, full disclosure, one of the biggest challenges that I've ran into in this post-pandemic world has been how do I interview people and select the right talent and work through HR issues without actually sitting in a room with somebody, it's really hard for me, because I'm not used to it, to gauge how somebody's feeling and interpret their nonverbal communication, and all of these really really important cues that we use in human resources. So I'm curious to understand, maybe first of all, when you get an application, how do you make sure that you pick the right people for your organization?
That is a super interesting question because I completely agree with the fact that verbal communication is fundamental when you're trying to communicate with someone. And you may wonder, okay, do you do that if you can barely see the person? Where it's true that these days we have a lot of tools that keep us in contact. So that means that I can get to see the person that's in front of me, even if not entirely. It's still a nice picture of the other person, knowing how they just use the body language, the tone, etc. So talking about how Per Lemon recruits, it's super interesting because our recruitment process is quite unique. And I've had people telling me that they hated it and other people loved it. So how does Per Lemon recruit their team members? We have built a process that is step by step, but I will just focus on the main parts that I think is super interesting. We value people being on the same level whenever they introduce themselves to us. And to do that, you want to ensure that everybody goes through the same user experience. How do you do that? We built an application form that allows people to give us the same information. So this is let's say the first point of contact with us that makes us understand, okay, who is in front of us. And then what may be surprising is that among the questions, yes, we do ask people to give us the usual contact details, the resume, etc., but we don't look at any CV. The reality is that we do this because we want to give people the opportunity to introduce themselves in a more natural way. And because we are not able to see each other, then we decided to give people the opportunity to just record themselves. So video interviewing is a very interesting, in my opinion, way of interviewing people. But it's not like you hop on a call at the same time. You give the candidates the possibility to just prepare themselves and decide how they want to present themselves in front of the new company that they may not really know, and they may not even just know what to expect from us. But from their point of view, it has been usually a funny and entertaining experience because it really gives them the opportunity to stand out from the crowd, be themselves, and not really just stay behind a cover letter that is usually pretty cold. So this is really a way to have a warmer hello and introduction video to Per Lemon.
Got it. So if I'm hearing you correct, you have them be like a YouTuber, and give you a resume that way.
Basically, yes. Yeah. It's been super fun for us too because you really see people that do everything they can to achieve their goals. And I've seen amazing videos, really.
We'll be back after a quick break.
And so used to having everything in front of them right away that we forget that innovation just takes time. I myself, I get frustrated too. Why? And this as being one of my best friends is, hey, I talk to you all the time. Hey, man, I'm frustrated in the fact that I can't seem to just get there in the next day. But that's just not how these things work, right? Innovation needs to be planned out. It needs to be very methodical. And then when it finally hits, that's when it seems like to everyone else that it sort of just came out of nowhere. But to you, the amount of dedication that it took over that time.
So I gotta ask. So what's the best one you've seen? Is it like special effects and explosions, or like what kind of things are you seeing?
More or less, that is what I saw. You don't have any expectations. You're like, okay, let me open the video. I don't know who the person is and what they're going to do. And some people really made a short film, like a short film with themselves being two characters and talking to the other character. So that was super, super fun because you really see the person interviewing themselves. So that was like very, very fun. And it really shows how, like, what the work attitude is, how motivated people are, how passionate they are about something that they really want to get, like a new job opportunity.
That's yeah. It can go a lot of ways with that, whether it's a split personality disorder, that
Yes.
yeah, that could be that would be really interesting, and I can only imagine some of the videos that you might see. So this is interesting because we were talking about this with a previous podcast guest, and talking about doing a video interview with Mark Miller, one of our previous guests, who's an HR technologist. And one of the questions that I have is, how do you prevent exclusionary hiring if somebody's maybe not comfortable with videography or editing? Do you have any thoughts on how to address maybe that concern?
Yeah, so before I mentioned this video that impressed me because of course, the video edits and also the just the imagination, the creativity that this person has used. But that is not the only thing that we value, because we totally understand that some people may not be keen on video editing, they may not be that good, but that is not important. It's just a plus. If you really cannot edit, it's just about being in front of our camera and talk about yourself, a little bit of why you want to get that job, why you want to be with that company specifically, and just anything that comes to mind. So what we value in this case is really how the person wants to present themselves, how they try to maybe even deal with their possible anxiety or feeling of just being uncomfortable in front of a camera talking alone. We totally get that, and that is completely fine as long as you see that people are willing to try. This is super important at Pearl Lemon, our company. Willingness to learn, willingness to just give it a go, because at the end of the day, nothing bad is going to happen. And if anything, you're just going to show how much you tried despite some challenges.
That makes sense. Are you hiring, or are a lot of the positions you hiring for creative?
We do some in some cases, because we hire for design and video editing, for example, but also
Hmm. Got it.
writing implies a bit of creative thinking. Anything is about also creative thinking for creating solutions. So thinking out of the box is really well, it's a plus in my opinion.
Sure, sure. So if I could sum this up, what I'm hearing is, okay, by doing a video, you're not necessarily judging them on, whether it's, a, Hollywood level production, but you're judging them on a few things, is what I'm hearing. So one, you're judging them on how much do they actually want this job because they're taking the time to do the video. How much thought did they actually put into it, and how much creativity went into the project. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yes, that's exactly the case. And also, it's a matter of understanding if what they say seems to be true. So, whenever you're saying something or you're writing something, you don't get the body language, the tonality, or anything that makes you understand that what you're saying could be true. For example, you cannot say, I'm good at selling stuff. I'm a good salesperson with a flat tonality. So that is something that allows recruiters to understand, okay, what is this person trying to say? they're trying to say, okay, I can sell you stuff, but you cannot say like that. So it really is a way to reveal potential of people.
Sure, it's like asking somebody, are you creative? Yes, I'm creative.
Exactly.
Wow, great question. Right?
Exactly.
It's a, you get a little more data with you with the video. That's interesting. I haven't done that in my career, but I'm so fascinated. Do you make them sign a release so that if you get a really good video, you can like put it on social media and be like, check out this awesome video we just got?
Usually we don't do that, but why not? We could start doing that.
I'm sure there's a privacy issue there. I'm sure
Yeah,
GDPR is all over that. So yeah, no, I'm sure that's impossible.
I'm sure about that. But I also feel like some people would love for us to post it because after that much commitment, effort, why not? Why not using it? But yeah, of course we're not going to do it. Usually it's just the HR team checking it and no one else.
Sure. Yeah, the privacy officers wouldn't like that very much, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So going on the same topic, one of the things we were talking about before we hit record was the fact that you don't use a CV or a resume at all. How does that work?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we decided not to do that because, well, first of all, you see a lot of case studies of companies. Okay, we're not looking at any CV. So the first reaction is really, okay, how does that work? How is it possible? But then if you really think about it, there are tons of reasons why CV are not as important anymore. What happens is that we used to see the CV as the not the only way of introducing for a candidate to introduce themselves to a company, but it used to have a really important place in the recruitment process. We don't want to give that much of um, importance to past experiences because sometimes you really miss out on talents. So you need to consider a lot of, well, usually what happens is that you have a CV, you know that that is the first impression that you're going to give the person. So we know first impressions count. So how do you do that? CV just encourage people to embellish them. So I usually summarize this as two possible scenarios can come up. First, people start lying or just giving misleading information about themselves, and that is not really helpful because usually recruiters may have different expectations than what a candidate really is. And second, the second possible scenario is in case someone is not really good at marketing themselves, so
Hmm.
they are
Hmm.
not even as good as presenting what they know. So you may think of people who gained practical knowledge experience just by doing and not really by attending a specific course or university, and it would just put them in a disadvantaged place if you focus on the CV only. So at the end of the day, whenever when you're looking at CVs, it takes time to just go through it and understand what does that mean, what does that experience can mean in if we put this candidate into our organization. So we think that instead of focusing on past experiences, it's rather better to just focus on potential, on future, on how well a person would perform in a possible position in our company. That is more important because we want to give we want to value no skills and the work attitude more.
So I want to, if you'll humor me, I want to do a little bit of an exercise here because I think one of the points that you called out is really critical, and that's somebody's ability to market themselves. And so, I first of all, I think resumes are they're a data point, but if you are using just the resume to determine whether to hire somebody or not, you are totally missing the point. And so I want to do a quick exercise. So, Federica, tell me something about your current job that you do that's super boring, but it's like just something that you do on a regular basis.
Yes, so if I think about something that I do on a daily basis, it's checking all emails.
Sure. So okay, so here's where I'm going with this, and as we think about like resumes or CVs, it is so much about just how you put things in there and the buzzwords that you use. A lot of times, it truly does not reflect somebody's performance. And here's my example: checking emails. Right. So if I were writing a resume, the way I would tell people that I check emails every day is I interpret and synthesize data in a context rich environment to ensure that I respond to my internal customers' needs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Which is just an absolute BS way to say I check emails.
yeah. Yeah,
But I think that's exactly the point, right? It's like, so the people that are good at that and have a natural skill for understanding, either written or verbal communication, typically are extroverted, uh, aren't necessarily always the best employees.
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I think it's one of those things. It's a point of caution. If you do use a CV or resume, it just use it as a data point. It's not the end all be all for individuals. And yeah, give me hard work all day long and the ability to learn, and that's a winning combination in my mind.
Yes, 100% agreed. Yeah.
Thanks for humoring me. So I want to dig into to your last comment a little bit more. So you talked about gathering feedback and then taking action on that feedback. How do you do that when you're not face to face? How do you enable that feedback mechanism? And then how do you respond when there are challenges and issues that come your way?
So feedback is super important in general, especially if you are a remote team. And when I say that, it's because we want people to feel more connected. And especially if you encourage team members that never met in person and that maybe at the beginning they don't even really know each other, if you encourage them to give each other constructive feedback, it's a way to connect on something that they both know, or if someone doesn't know what they're working on, it's a way to just get to know the other person. And that allows people to just be engaged with what they're doing first, and also with the with another person or with the overall team. So this is something that we do quite often, or let's say quite regularly. It doesn't have to be, let's say, on a daily basis, but we spend some time to just show other people what we do. Because if you're not in the same office, you don't necessarily know what other people in your team are working on. So a way to do that is just by recording the screen for a few minutes while you speak and you show people what you do. You don't tell people what you do, you show them, because we are working remotely, we are all working on the laptop. So we just spend our day and we do our task on the laptop. And from there, you simply record what you're doing and you explain to someone else and you show to someone else what you're doing. It may happen that by encouraging this feedback, the other person may say, okay, you know what, I can do that, but in a quicker and easier way. Let me show you. So that is something that pushes and encourages interaction. So that is one way we give feedback. If I have, for example, to collect feedback on something that is just involving the overall team, what I would do, I would just message people one by one. So that may take quite a while to just collect ideas, but it's really, really powerful because you let people talk freely because you're not going to judge them, and you want to just encourage feedback for improvement. You'll see how people may not have been able, let's say, during an event, a meeting, or a training session, to say, okay, this wasn't as clear. Okay, let me organize that and let me make sure that this is going to improve next time. So, to summarize, feedback that we exchange among people of a remote team is by sharing comments related to a video, a screen, a video recording of your work by just using WhatsApp. We use WhatsApp a lot for instant communication, or we create forms that is more formal, more structured for just collecting ideas that we want to possibly take and keep long term.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's been one of the more challenging aspects of working from home, and some of the remote work has been gathering that feedback. The other challenge, I'm curious if you have any examples of this, is dealing with conflict in the workplace. And I think conflict can be very healthy if it's managed in a healthy way, and managed appropriately. But one of the things that I've noticed is it's really easy for conflict to occur that doesn't need to occur because people aren't in the same room together or don't understand the context of comments that were made. So how do you work through conflict management as an HR professional managing people you've never been in the same room with?
Well, I think the first way to address this is by trying to prevent conflicts from happening. So if you know that, if you kind of expect some miscommunication to happen and to cause more problems, what we're trying to do is to really show that transparency is fundamental here. So by setting a friendly and informal environment, we let people be free to say, hey, this is not working, before actually getting into the conflictual situation that is harder to deal with. Whenever it has to happen that there is something harder to just manage, then we take the time to do a video call with the people interested and try to sort things out by understanding from the beginning what is happening, what is making you feel this specific situations, and so on. So we don't really do many video calls because we think that video calls should be the valuable moment for you and the other team member, because you are in different time zones, you are all super busy, you may have other responsibilities. So whenever you do this video call, is really to make the most of that time, and usually by just addressing the problem or asking the good questions, then you get to solve the problem. Because of course anything can happen, and I think among the biggest challenges that I've had to deal with, it's really understanding what is happening in the team when you're not there. So that is something that I found really challenging, because it's different from when you are in the office and you can simply walk in the office and you can feel something's wrong. So
Right.
how can you do that when you are remote? So rather than the actual conflict, is understanding when there's conflict. So as soon as you feel something is wrong, something is off, you may just go to the person, okay, let's have a chat. And when you have that chat, it's quite serious or quite important to share that moment and make sure things are eased and solved when the call ends.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm sure that that's been a challenge that many of the HR professionals that listen to this, I'm sure, have dealt with, is that conflict management, dealing with somebody who maybe has a workplace concern, and not being able to be face to face. It just makes it challenging. I have one interesting question here. So I noticed that your LinkedIn profile says you're learning how to play the kalimba. What is a kalimba?
I was wondering what the question was. Oh, actually, the kalimba is an instrument that allows you to just play. It's like, so you have keys. Think about a piano, but they're not like that. Also, because the way you play them is with your thumbs only. So it's a super small object that you keep in your hand, and the sound is super interesting. It's just super. I find it particular as an instrument. I'm definitely not an expert in music, but it's something that I'm learning to play. I'm not sure if my explanation is quite clear on what to expect if you've never seen it.
I don't know. All I know is I'm going to have to Google it now, just because I'm really curious. And when we have you on the show next, we'll have to do an intro with a kalimba solo by Federica.
Perfect. I have to prepare
We'll
for that.
kickstart your career with that. How's that?
Yeah, why not?
Put you on the path to stardom. All right. Well, this has been an absolutely wonderful conversation. Want to shift gears and go into the Rebel HR Flash Round. So, in this round, we're going to ask 3 quick questions to understand a little bit more about your perspective. Question number 1: what are you reading right now?
So at the moment, I'm reading a book called First Break All the Rules: What the World's Greatest Managers Do Differently. It's by Marcus Buckingham and Carl Kaufman, and I find it super interesting. Well, first of all, the title really caught my attention because it's something that we do at our company. We try to do things differently, to always change the way we see things. We are in constant change. And with this book, I think it's interesting to see how to enhance talents in particular, to really make the most of them, but also how to manage known talents, because you don't want well, everybody has known talents, right? But you don't want that to come in the way, and you want to rather prevent them from turning into weaknesses. So I think this is really useful to understand who you have in front of you whenever a candidate is applying, or whenever you have a team to train and to kind of shape to make the most of them and make it fit for the company, and the other way
Sure.
around.
Love it. Perfect. Perfect for an HR rebel.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 2: who should we be listening to?
I think I would recommend, if you're looking for something quite practical, I would recommend a podcast that's called Recruitment on the Go. And that is, of course, recruitment is not the only thing that HR professionals do and work on. But I think this is super useful if you're looking for really practical tips. So episodes are just 10 to 15 minutes. And at the end, you have actionable tips and steps that you can think of and maybe try to apply to your environment, your organization. I think this is something I would really recommend.
Great, awesome. I'll have to check that out.
Mhm.
All right, last question: how can our listeners connect with you?
LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn would be the best way to go. So you can find me at Federica Gianoglio. Well, I can give the link, the URL. I guess it would be easier. I know my name is quite hard to pronounce, quite unusual, but yeah, LinkedIn will be the easiest to use.
Perfect, and we'll have that link in the show notes. So if you want to connect with Federica, learn a little bit more about Pearl Lemon, and maybe swap some awesome recruitment videos, that's where it's at. So I want to just say thank you again, Federica, for taking some time this evening to talk to me and share some of your stories. Really fascinating, and I would dare I say groundbreaking differences within the world of HR for the next century. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you so much for having me and for the great conversation. I've had a great time, and it was great just exchanging ideas on this new way of just living in the HR world.
Love it. Keep on rebelling. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks.
All right, that does it for the Rebel HR podcast. Big thank you to our guests. Follow us on Facebook at Rebel HR Podcast, Twitter at Rebel HR Guy, or see our website at rebelhumanresources.com. The views and opinions expressed by Rebel HR Podcast are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any of the organizations that we represent. No animals were harmed during the filming of this podcast.
Baby.